All right, let's get to the big news of the day. A Monty Show exclusive. We've been talking about it for months and months and months, this situation in the Mountain West. And a lot of people have wondered aloud, hey, what's going on with UNLV? Is UNLV leaving the Mountain West? Well, over the weekend and into the early hours of today, we developed an exclusive here on the Monty Show where we have been told by sources very close to the situation that UNLV actually had conversations with the Big 12 Conference about leaving the Mountain West and going to the Big 12 Conference. Clearly, those conversations were not fruitful, right? But the very fact that the Big 12 entertained the conversations, because from our sources, we are told that UNLV reached out to the Big 12 and had multiple meetings, had multiple conversations about what it would look like. What would it take? What is the framework of a move to bring UNLV to a P4 that would be the Big 12? That's a big move for UNLV. We were also told that UNLV made those moves and overtures to the Big 12, and those conversations happened before UNLV signed their grant of rights with the Mountain West, and there has been no conversation since UNLV rejoined the Mountain West and signed that grant of rights. Jake, I think this is a significant move. And if you're a fan of UNLV, I think you have to be thrilled with this news.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's always good news when your administration of your university is open to all possibilities. And I think, for UNLV, being that they're in Las Vegas, it makes a lot of sense to talk to Brett and the people over at the Big 12. You look at the Big 12. The Big 12 has sort of doubled down on their commitment and their investment in the West, if you will. You look at what they've done with the baseball tournament now, moving that to Tucson. Obviously the Big 12 had gotten involved just with the city of Las Vegas for their media days and things like that. And so I just think the Big 12 is always this conference that's looking to innovate and always be pressing forward. Now, I think this conversation around timeline with UNLV and when these conversations happening is also really interesting, because if you think about it, when these conversations were happening, obviously there were a lot of questions about UNLV's future. Was UNLV inevitably going to go to the Pac-12? Was the Pac-12going to, be able to swoop in and pick them up and poach them out of the Mountain West and essentially kill the Mountain West or decimate it to a point where they couldn't come back? Obviously, that didn't happen. Obviously, UNLV goes on to, sign the grant of rights and the extension and all that good stuff. But ultimately, I think this concept of UNLV trying to figure out how to best position themselves both athletically and financially is kind of at the forefront of this. Because if you're saying to yourself, if you're a UNLV official and you're saying to yourself, hey, we should call Brett Yormark, we should call the Big 12, and we should see if there's any traction there, any possibility of being able to join that conference, that would obviously be a huge step up. So I love the fact that UNLV is forward thinking and always open to their potential opportunities. The problem is that UNLV is in this place where obviously they're in the Las Vegas market. Obviously they're working on continuing to get better in football. But what do we know? What does that take? Well, that takes a big time investment, right? You look at whether you want to look at what Sacramento State is working on with coming up, or you want to look at other schools who are making investments in their football program. Ultimately, what do we know? Football pays the bills. So you have to show dominance and you have to win enough in football to make yourself as attractive as possible. And I think for me, that's where UNLV can really, really make strides. We know that UNLV basketball, most of the time is in a conversation for the tournament. Some years they miss, some years they make it, but they're typically in that conversation.
Right.
And for me, I just sit here and I say, okay, well, UNLV football just went head-to-head with Boise State and Ashton Ginty. Obviously, they came up a little bit short, but it was super compelling. So UNLV is not a brand that would struggle, in my opinion, to be compelling in a power conference. I do think they could add value. I do think that UNLV and the Big 12 could be a good fit, especially when you look at what the Big 12 is trying to do in Las Vegas. But unfortunately, UNLV financially right now, based on, what I know we've been told, based on, what we look at athletically, their performance athletically, they're not in a financial position to make some big move and incur a lot of cost. And I think that's the difficult part.
Well, I also think that UNLV has acted incredibly pragmatically with pragmatism.
And stuff.
I think they have handled this very well. I think if you're not reaching out to the Big 12, what are you doing? Because I don't think there's anyone who doubts Las Vegas is growing seemingly daily in their sports landscape, and the profile of Las Vegas as a big sporting event town is back, right? You look at big football games, big NFL games, big NBA games. You look at what the Golden Knights are doing. You look at what everything is pointing at in Las Vegas is, hey, listen, the Mountain West is moving there. You look at the fact that the Big 12, as you said, is having multiple events there. That's a big event town. UNLV knows that. It raises their profile. It brings people into the door. I think it was absolutely the right thing to do. But I also think signing the grant of rights and staying in the Mountain West was 100% the right thing to do, because like you said, and I think I've heard this multiple times from our sources at UNLV, there was never a time where they were going to pay attorneys to leave the Mountain West for the Pac-12. And I think that's a hard pill for the Pac-12 and its supporters to swallow, because when you look at what UNLV did here, UNLV wasn't pandering or begging. They were exploring. And if there had been an opportunity before UNLV signed that grant of rights, I think they would have jumped to the Big 12. But again, as we have reported for months and months now, I don't believe that UNLV was ever, is close the right way to put it. I don't think they were ever on the verge of making a move to the Pac-12. Did they talk to the Pac-12? Multiple times and extensively. But the finances never made sense, because UNLV could not put themselves in a position where they were risking their future for a great unknown. It's what's plagued the Pac-12 for years now, since the exiting 10 members left. It is the great unknown. You don't know what the TV deal is. You don't know what your annual revenue is going to be. You don't know what you are hanging on to, where you're going to broadcast your games. There's nothing to build on right now. That's the single biggest problem. It was a risk that UNLV was unwilling to take. And trust me when I say, multiple universities leaving the Mountain West lobbied hard to try and get UNLV to join them. And UNLV, as it was put to me, was never on the verge of leaving the Mountain West. They never hesitated to sign that new grant of rights in the Mountain West. I don't think their loyalty ever wavered to the Mountain West. If you're a UNLV and you are not exploring, and I'll say the same thing about Air Force, whether that is the AAC, the Pac-12, wherever you want to point to, if you're one of these universities and you did not explore other options when you had a contractual window to do so, you were not only failing yourself, you were failing those who believe in you and those who rely on you. And I think UNLV has served its community very well with conversations. Our exclusive here on the show today, that UNLV had conversations, multiple conversations with the Big 12 conference about joining that conference before they signed their grant of rights. I love that they did that, because it shows they are not merely sitting still and hoping. They are trying to proactively build their financial future, which when you're at UNLV's level and in their position, you have no choice. Because if you're going to sit still and hope that others will perform so you can make money, you're not going to make money and you are going to suffer. And that's not something that UNLV is willing to do.
Yeah, and I think Las Vegas has shown to be a town. Like, I love the description, because I think it's really spot on. Like, a big sporting event town or city, right? Like, and I think that's a great way to put it, because I do truly believe one of UNLV's, it's so funny. It's like one of your biggest advantages, but also one of the biggest things hindering you, is that Las Vegas is a big event town, not a college football town, not a NBA town or an F1 town, like just a, hey, big ticket thing is happening here at 7:00, everyone show up. And I think that's also one of the challenges when you talk about the prospect of UNLV joining a power conference in the Big 12, is one, you don't have your own football stadium, which I think is, when you start getting to the power level, I think that becomes a big problem for you because you're not bringing in that level of revenue that I think most universities, especially in today's climate with NIL and how settlement stuff and those things, you want all those concessions. You want everything that comes with having that stadium, number one.
Totally agree.
But then number two, I think the hard part is if you look at other schools, like just look into the Big 12, like UNLV is not the big ticket in town the way other schools are in their towns, right?
Boise.
Boise, you look at Provo, look at Salt Lake, you look, dude, look at the Sun Devils, right?
Yeah, UNLV doesn't have that hammer.
They don't have that advantage of just a built-in, oh, hey, they're playing, we better go. They don't have that advantage. So that's why I say, I think when you talk about the mathematics of it, the finances of it, the setup of it, I do think, unfortunately, the Mountain West is the best fit for them at this time. But I think one other piece to this, if you're UNLV, you have to consider is how does the potential of a Super League coming down the pipe change your future here? Because ultimately, you're going to have to make a decision, which is, are we interested, number one? Because I think that's the baseline that everyone just likes to skip over. Are we interested in competing athletically at that level, which I do think UNLV is in football. I do think they have aspirations of that. I think they would love to see the program grow to that. But then number two, how do you make that happen? And that I also think was a consideration here. Hey, we can't afford, to your point, we can't afford to take the risk of going to the Pac-12. So we're not going to do that. We don't have the money and in my opinion, the available resources at this time to pony up the cash and the leverage to go ahead and make the jump to the Big 12. And so the Mountain West makes the most sense. A reliable multi-year extension that's going to pay you and keep you in a good spot. And you're going to have to try to create other opportunities. I just don't know what the other choice, where else you would have gone with it.
Yeah,
that's the hard part.
I don't disagree with that at all. I think it is a really interesting conversation on both sides for the Big 12 and for UNLV. I think it was the wrong space and time for the Big 12. That certainly plays a factor, timing, just like you hitting the like button right now on our YouTube channel. If you're listening on our audio podcast, thank you very much for listening on audio wherever you are. Make sure you come over to YouTube, hit the like button, subscribe to the channel. It really helps the channel grow. If you're on X, thank you for watching. Our views on X have been really substantially higher, and we appreciate that. Come on over to YouTube. Give us a thumbs up. Sergeant Morhew, Jaden Mayava, my former Rebel and current Trojan, is a better QB than Sanders. Okay, you can keep telling yourself that if you like. Backwoods Sexy Mike Smith, this is such a pro Mountain West show. Why do they hate the Pac, Mac, Sunbelt, and Big Sky? I can't stand the Big Sky.
I'm sorry if you're offended by that.
The Big Lubbock, hello. Texas Tech is Big 12 champs in men's and women's track and field. Thank God for that.
Yeah, wow, dude.
Wow.
Because shit's going good.
Wow. Sergeant Morhew, track and field. As a UNLV fan, we're really excited about our AD, Eric Harper. He's steering us in the right direction. He's a good one.
Agreed.
He's a good one. Buffalo Hunter. It's always a good thing for school leadership to aspire for bigger and better things. Unless you're Utah trying to get to the Big Ten, then you're the bad guys. Utah never tried to get to the Big Ten. Like, I love somehow how everybody believes that just because idiots out there are like, oh, Utah is to blame for the valuation of the do you really think Kirk Schultz and you really think George Kliavkoff were listening to Utah when it came to valuing? And
back of the envelope calculations.
I'd remind you that they were paying consultants in the Pac-12. Like, they were not listening to anybody. Like, you look at Washington, and I think maybe the overreaching argument here is it was never the money, it was the percentage of streaming that was the breaking point in the Pac-12.
Yep.
If you go back and listen to our reporting in that time, and again, I don't care if you're new to the show, old to the show, love the show, hate the show. We were nails on the Pac-12 meltdown.
Facts.
We had it right from the beginning. It was amazing. Now, how did we get it right from the beginning? Is it because George Kliavkoff came on our show and humiliated himself and us? No, that's another show.
Back to the envelope calculations.
You look at our show. We told you the seemingly biggest divide in that conference was not the money. People were fixated on $50 million a year. That was George Kliavkoff and Kirk Schultz.
That's the untrained eye.
The biggest issue was Anna Marie Casse not getting on board with being 75, 80% of your live sporting events on stream, not on linear television.
Which is ironic considering the deal that they're potentially looking at in the long term being mostly streaming.
Now it's mostly streaming.
Yeah.
And as far as the money goes, Utah was not the engine behind we're worth $50 million a year. Utah was not the ones out trying to get to the Big Ten. Utah, as I have said from the beginning, stayed in the Pac-12 and continued to push the process of keeping the Pac-12 together until it was very apparent that was no longer an option. And I will continue to tell you what I told you then. I'll keep saying it now. BYU played a critical role in helping Utah get to the Big 12 and making that deal happen. How do you think it was ready to be signed, sealed, and delivered at the 11th hour and 59 seconds? Because Utah was exploring $50 million a year? No, they were not.
Some old guy administrator at BYU is retired now. Just, he did all this stuff behind the scenes that no one wants to talk about.
I think people want to blame Utah for everything. For everything. And I think Utah is that university that the current Pac-12 slurpers want to blame for everything. And I would just tell you, if you're somebody who is an Oregon State or a Washington State fan, if you look at Utah, they did the exact opposite of what Oregon State did. Oregon State waited until everybody else left to try and get out of that conference or try to find a new home. Why is Oregon State not a villain?
Mm-hmm.
Did Oregon State call the Big Ten? Yes. Did Oregon State call the Big 12? Yes. They called everybody and could not find a home. So why are they not a villain? Because that's not convenient. That's not convenient that Oregon State called the Big Ten. That doesn't fit your narrative. And you can hate Utah as much as you want. The facts of the matter are, Utah is the only reason that the Pac-12 stayed together as long as it did. Because I'm telling you now, if Utah had not intervened, if Utah had not essentially played mediator, which today on the 19th of May, when the Pac-12 and the Mountain West began mediation today, as we reported exclusively on the show that they would, as an interesting word. But do you understand how much Utah, for instance, between Arizona and Arizona State, do you know the vitriol and frustration that existed between those two? Who acted as the mediator there? Utah. When you look at the northern branch of the Pac-12 versus the southern branch, who acted as the mediator there? When USC and UCLA announced they were leaving, who intervened to kind of calm the waters and find a solution? Utah did. It wasn't Kirk Schultz. It wasn't Anna Marie Casse. It wasn't. I mean, we can make up stuff in fairy tale land and talk about how everybody in the Pac-12 hates Utah. Nobody in the Pac-12 hated Utah. You know what the funny thing is? You took them for granted until they wound up in the Big 12, and then all of a sudden they were the villains and they were the bad guy. Utah did what you should have done. Because if you were Scott Barnes, my only critique of Scott Barnes in Oregon State, he waited too long.
Yeah.
He should have been pursuing a Big 12 spot because I think they could have got it.
As soon as you caught wind of what Colorado was doing, you should have called Brett Yormark.
I think listen, as soon as USC and UCLA, because I can tell you this as well. Everybody in that conference started making phone calls when USC and UCLA said we're leaving. Everybody started making phone calls. Now, half the conference was focused on who are we going to replace him with, which is why they tried to get Texas and failed. But who did they never call? They never called BYU. How do you not make that phone call? Because you're terrible at business. That's how you never make that phone call. That whole thing, you guys, it's hysterical to me that Utah is always the villain.
Mm-hmm.
And it's simply not the case. It is not the case. Gumby, dude. What's up, Gumby? Everyone knows it's Cal and Stanford's fault for destroying the Pac-12. That's exactly right.
Kick a person when he's down.
That's exactly right. How many times did we have to explain to people that you're not like actually moving the university to Greensboro to join the ACC?
Yeah, well, Monty, they're picking up the school and putting it on a flatbed and driving it like 8,000 miles.
Man, it's amazing to me. It's amazing to me. Phil Benzer, I bet the Monty Show doesn't get any of the YouTube commercial revenue. Oh, sure we do. What do you think? We work for free? Chewy Gonzalez.
Talking about that?
I don't know. Guys. Utah got first in speed walking. No one gives a rat's ass in track and field.
Yeah, well, Monty, the speed walking 4x100 relay was scintillating this year, and Utah absolutely blew the field away.
Yeah, the dexterity in their hip flexors really stood out, coming around the quarter post in that final furlong.
I mean, I know that the Preakness Stakes was incredible and journalism got screwed, the half mile. But, man, Utah really dominated the speed walking competition this year.
Fight on natties. It was all the fault of that commissioner for the Pac-12. It was his fault that brought the demise of the conference. Both of them, Larry Scott and George Kliavkoff. I mean, it is remarkable to me how poorly managed that conference was from day one. And it's why, again, I understand everybody thinks SC and UCLA and they're backstabbers. Okay, cool. If you could have gotten into the Big Ten, would you have? Oregon State.
Well, Monty.
Oregon State and Washington State. If you could have done what SC and UCLA did, would you have? Yeah, absolutely. The answer is yes. Every single time. And if your answer is not yes, you're Kliavkoff and Larry Scott. Keep paying for the hotel suites and the downtown.
And he will every single time.
The downtown office complex you didn't need. Keep paying for that stuff. Because I'm telling you, mismanagement, the greatest tragedy I've ever seen in college sports is that conference melting down.
Yeah.
Because it never had to happen. It was arrogance that killed the pack. A big part of it. No doubt about it. Gumby, I am about to unleash my own personal stream. Okay. That's a felony in some states. Just be careful. Big Daddy Tragic. College football is your bread and butter. You're the Woj of college football.
Yeah, I don't understand this whole, do we get paid on YouTube commercial stuff? And like, what are we talking about with that?
Yeah, I don't know what you guys mean by that.
What are we doing?
Where did that come from? Aaron Wilson says, Gumby, Aaron.
Monty.
Drinking mead with Sam Adams. Okay.
Who the fuck are you?
This is interesting, but the fact now that the Pac-12 war chest is only $65 million, it looks like they made the right choice to stay in the Mountain West. I think, and again, this is a big narrative from those that fillet the Pac-12 on a daily basis.
Knee pad.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Knee pad the Pac-12 on a daily basis. Oh, we've got money coming out our rectums, boys. Okay. Where is it? Show me. The hardest part for both the Pac-12 and the Mountain West is, are you going to be able to meet the financial obligations you made? For instance, I want to say it's $31 million that the Mountain West will have to pay the UNLV. Out of all that money that they get, poaching fees, I believe it's $31 million.
Like, for instance,
Beginning in 2026, will go to UNLV. How much? Because we don't know. Nothing's pen to paper in the Pac-12. We don't have a grant of rights.
Absolutely wild, considering the timeline.
Because again, and Pac-12 fans tell me I'm full of crap and I don't know what I'm talking about. And I know it's hard to hear. The Pac-12 does not have a grant of rights with the new members. Well, you don't know that. Okay, well, let me ask you something. You don't have a grant of rights. You don't have a new TV deal. Well, Monty, no, well, Monty's. Why don't you have a new TV deal? Why is it in fact true that when the Pac-12 has been out and their agent has been out soliciting a new media rights deal, they have not been able to contractually promise what schools will be in the conference and which ones won't?
Oh.
You know why that is? Because it's illegal to sign a contract that includes, in this case, somebody else's home game rights to their home games. And when you don't have those rights to their home games,
because it's illegal.
And why don't you have the right to their home games? Well, because they haven't signed a grant of rights. Well, Monty, why is that? Because the exiting members of the Mountain West haven't actually exited the Mountain West. They have not submitted their letters in writing, which they have to do. They have not sent their $5,000 payment, down payment, essentially. They've not done that. And here we are on the 19th. You got 12 days. So I would assume it's coming. But does somebody blink? I don't know.
Because, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm a little fuzzy on this part, but none of the schools have officially said they're leaving, right? They don't have.
All of them have said listen, look at the graphic, guys. Look at the graphic, right? Because we all know that the Mountain West is losing these universities. Well, because the Pac-12 put out a graphic. Look at all the current members who are still members of the Mountain West on this graphic. Pro rata they deserve is still a member of the Mountain West, but still on this graphic with the Pac-12. The issue is, if you don't own a product, you can't go sell it.
Right.
They don't have the rights to the exiting members of the Mountain West. And I've been trying to explain this. How are you going to sell a new TV deal? And this is the question that I asked when Pro Rata We Deserve at San Diego State was telling all those people, March 31st,
hey,
we're going to have the greatest TV deal announcement you've ever seen.
Hey, Monty, can you correct me if I'm wrong here, but I believe Buddy said that was going to be at the end of March, but today's May 19th. That seems like we might be a little past that deadline.
You got to stop talking. If you're J.D. Wicker and San Diego State and everybody else, and largely everybody else has done a really nice job of just shutting the heck up, except J.D. Wicker, who can't stop talking.
Yeah, no more Teresa Gould interviews. No more J.D. Wicker, on the concourse, statements. No more of that. It's been pretty quiet
because it just doesn't make you look good. And so now you're in this position, if you're the Pac-12 and the Mountain West, where you're specifically the Pac-12, though, your future TV deal, you can't even sign it today if somebody agreed to it because you don't own the rights of your supposedly new entering members. Whereas in the Mountain West, and I know Oregon State, Washington State fan just pissed themselves in anger over this. The Mountain West has a grant of rights signed. All of their current and future members have signed that grant of rights. They can go out and negotiate, which they are. They're trying to build their future. They're doing business. They're trying to get this. Who suggested mediation? The Mountain West. Who suggested mergers? The Mountain West.
Yeah.
It's hard to argue you're just not in a great position if you're the Pac-12. Now, can that change? Yes, absolutely. But you got to go and get an 8th football member first. And again, I was talking to some dude in the comment section today. Well, Sacramento State's going to be our 8th member. Yeah, that'd be great if it was able to be your 8th member in 2026. It's not. There's a process, and that I believe the earliest they could be a full-fledged member is the 2027 season.
That's bullshit.
So that doesn't work. And according to sources we talked to, nobody's really setting the world on fire to get Texas State in the Pac-12. I think there's a lot of people gripping over this mediation, getting it done, and then seeing if you can go pull a rabbit out of the AAC maybe.
Dude, you have like 5 minutes left on the microwave timer here.
It's
Dude,
tight.
It's coming down to it.
It is. I don't know. Let's see. I think the Pac is helping USU with their exit fees, so they must have some money. But again, it's not somebody like Utah State. It is much more somebody like UNLV. It is, you can't honestly tell me now that if you look at this graphic, you need a big brand. You need the biggest brand possible. And Boise's a great brand. Who else on this graphic is gotta have them? Life or death? Wow, that was a huge get.
It's a wrong question.
And the answer is not San Diego State because they don't play football. I believe they folded their football program. That was I'm being a dick. Anyway, the point is, like, if you look at Washington State and Oregon State, those are the 2 best brands in that conference, followed closely by Boise. Colorado State, Fresno State, obviously Gonzaga doesn't play football, only basketball. Utah State with
Gonzaga.
Bronco. Bronco is their head coach. I would assume they're heading in the right direction. That guy is a great football coach.
So, I mean,
And then the JD Wickers, who never seem to be heading in the right direction. They need a big win. If they could get I don't think they're going to get a Memphis or a Tulane. I am firmly in belief. I'd be stunned if it was UNLV because UNLV signed a grant of rights with the Mountain West. UNLV,
I don't live in a what if scenario.
As we're talking about today, UNLV has made it very clear that they want to be a P4 program.
just telling you, dude, I am way past being upset by Pac-12 knee padders doing what they do. Like, I look at this and it's very clear to me that I just don't know that the Pac has like a ton of options here. Like, again, and this is the question I've been asking for 2 weeks now. Even if you do get mediation done, and it comes out fruitful, they'll get it done. But like, there's a difference between getting it done and just cutting your losses versus getting it done and it being good for you. So let's say that they get it done and it's good for them. I'm still trying to figure out how you're going to come out the other side not tremendously in debt or behind, because you've got the exit fees, then you've got the poaching fees, which I'm guessing, just to guessing there's going to be some effort on the Pac-12 side to maybe consolidate those, which I doubt will happen, but I'm guessing they're going to try to do that. But you've got the poaching fees, the exit fees. Then you've got, trying to add members to the conference to become official. And on top of all of this, you've got everything happening at the higher level in college football that is inevitably going to impact you, right? The Super League will impact the Pac.
No, the
2,
House
10,
whatever settlement.
Yeah, the House settlement is another thing
which
on the
is now
list.
with the judge. Roster sizes, NIL, recruiting, portal.
But they're not going to engage in all that. They're going to have to decline all that. They're not going to be able to participate.
My question is, how many teams in either one of these leagues, not just the Mountain West, not just the Pac-12, how many of these teams opt out of revenue share?
I think a lot of them
Have to.
Like, how could they not? Like,
I don't know. Notice the graphic says coming in July 2026. Yeah. And my question is, if you're out selling a TV deal right now, what are you promising?
yeah.
What are you promising?
But I hope your inference, Mike, is not that somehow they have another year, because that's not the case.
No,
That is not the case at all.
not at all. It is, practically speaking, from in the business side of this, from the Pac-12, it's different for the Mountain West because the challenges are much less. They have a grant of rights. They have a current TV deal with partners that like them. They have relationships with all of that. You look at the Pac-12's hurdles here. They've got to get this Mountain West lawsuit done as soon as possible. One, it saves them money. Two, it lets them at least understand what their finances look like. Because currently, right now, the Mountain West and the Pac-12 don't know what their future finances look like in total, which is a huge problem if you're out trying to buy new membership, which is essentially what you're doing. You have commitments you've already made to, like Boise State, the uneven revenue sharing, how much of the money that you're saving, not paying, is that going here? Like, how much of the TV deal, like what promises were made specifically to Boise and Gonzaga to get them to move? What are the finances of those promises?
Gonzaga.
We won't know until pen is put to paper and we have contracts and grant of rights and we have membership and revenue statements.
I wonder if you're like, Gonzaga is a really interesting example. Like, if you're Gonzaga looking at this situation, is there no like anxiety or concern or stress over the Pac, 2, 12, whatever it's going to be, over that conference's ability down the line to pay out what you should have coming to you based on how active you are in the tournament? I mean, because again, I'm just sitting here saying, inevitably somebody or something is going to get shorted. Like, there's no way forward that says, hey, you're just flush with cash, you're just rolling in it. Like,
somebody is not going to get the money they were promised.
Yeah. So I'm just asking, who's that going to be? Who's getting the short end of the stick? Because it's not going to be Gonzaga, not going to be Boise State. It's definitely not going to be Washington or Oregon State, right? Like those four are getting theirs.
I don't know who it will be. I don't know how it will be doled out. I think it's very interesting that the Pac-12 is playing with a pot of money and they are trying to save. I think literally every penny matters. If you're on the Pac-12 side of it, every penny in these poaching fees matter. Every day that you are not done with this, that you are paying a lawyer, every one of those pennies matter because that's just money coming out of the war chest that's not going to Boise and Gonzaga and Texas State or whoever you're talking about, because you're paying. I think what we've reported, and I think it's been confirmed by just about everybody now, Gonzaga's getting a full revenue share in the conference. Even though they don't play football, they're getting a full revenue share.
And why is that? Because you had to overpromise to try to solidify this conference.
You had to overpay to get a brand like Gonzaga in your conference.
So again,
and I would have done the same thing.
Right. But again, I'm just bringing it back to things like overpaying Gonzaga to join this conference. Bring me back to the inevitability of where are you going to short? Because we all know how this works. We do this in life every day. Oh, it's a little tight right now. Money's a little tight right now. Yeah. Not going out tonight. Gonna have to have some top ramen instead. Gonna have to have some rice and beans instead, right? We all do this in life. We all short in different parts of life. So I'm just telling you guys, that's going to happen. And I'm curious what it looks like. What are we looking at here?
This is a big. Oh, wow. So you guys may have heard about a lawsuit against the Phoenix Suns. So we are big fans of a WNBA player named Sophie Cunningham.
Right.
We actually played ball against Sophie Cunningham.
Yeah.
In Phoenix. We played in a kind of a 3-point tournament thing. Well, there's been some allegations of misconduct. Ooh, this is a big story. This is A lawsuit filed by Gene Taylor, the Phoenix Suns' former director of safety, security, and risk management, accusing Suns CEO Josh Bartelstein of allegedly having an improper sexual relationship with former Mercury star Sophie Cunningham. Cunningham and Bartelstein have not responded to this publicly, but this is a scandal any way you slice it. And this is ugliness. Number one, who is Josh Bartelstein related to? His dad is a powerful agent in the NBA. Power agent. I believe amongst others, he represents Brad Beal, which is a huge problem. This is an awful look for Sophie Cunningham and the Suns. This is brutal.
Well, and now, of course, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. Obviously she's not a Mercury anymore.
No, she is no longer on the team, which was stunning when it happened because she is wildly popular.
Yeah.
She not only is a good player, and I can get a picture of her for you. She is a physical specimen. She is, and I think she plays in Indiana now.
Yes, she does. She was acquired by the Fever in a 4-team trade on February 2nd of this year. The trade involved the Fever, the Mercury, the Wings, and the Sun. The trade included the following, the Fever get Cunningham, Jaylen Brown, and some picks. The Fever sent Nalissa Smith, number 8 pick in the 2025 draft.
Yeah, Sophie is a if you don't follow Sophie Cunningham on Instagram, you're missing the world. But if you look at that bottom paragraph right there, this is a huge, ugly mess now in the WNBA that this has all come out publicly. And I saw this, I believe Saturday was the first time I started seeing some of this. But you look at Ms. Cunningham, she's a dime. She's beautiful. She
can play.
Yeah, she is and that's probably the thing above all things. Sophie Cunningham is a really good basketball player. And we really got to know her quite well in Phoenix. Really nice gal, really just salt of the earth, fun to be around. This is a bad look when the CEO of your team is having a sexual relationship with one of your players. This you cannot do.
Well, and I also think it's worth pointing out that the Suns were on the verge of getting past and finally putting to bed the Robert Sarver era. And now we get to retread and start again.
This is the 4th federal lawsuit since November of 2024, packed with allegations of racial discrimination, hostile work environment, retaliatory practices, and gross security negligence. Oh my goodness. This is brutal. This is absolutely brutal. And I don't have any idea how that ends, but holy cow, is that a terrible situation for the WNBA? And I agree with you. The Robert Sarver black cloud had finally moved off with Matt Ishbia. And now that I
mean, it's
am
rough, dude. There's no getting around it. It's rough. And I think, again, this is the whole, we got to wait for all the facts to come out, and now we're going to get discovery. Okay. Like,
why did you not settle this? And I talked about this a couple of weeks ago. Remember when the Bradley Beal contract came up and people were wondering, well, why Brad Beal? Because he's represented by Mark Bartelstein, who is the guy in this lawsuit is Josh Bartelstein. Mark Bartelstein runs Priority Sports. Josh Bartelstein is Mark's son and is the CEO of the Suns and Mercury. And now you wonder, it's brutal.
When does Book leave, dude? Like,
I don't know, but I will
point?
tell you, him and Sophie Cunningham are really good friends. Really, really, really good friends. And I don't know how you fix it. I don't know how you fix it.
Yeah, I just think that this organization,
Oof.
it's really unfortunate, and what's really terrible is, and I don't, we'll see what direction this goes, but I hope that this lawsuit doesn't turn into Sophie's reputation taking a huge hit, and her professionalism being questioned. Obviously, Bartelstein's professionalism is being questioned, of course, but we'll just have to see what comes out with it. You never know what the situation was, how it all came to be, how bad it was. Who the hell knows? But obviously something was going on. You don't draw up a lawsuit this size without nothing.
I am amazed that when you look at the situation in Phoenix, you got rid of Sarver, you brought in Josh Bartelstein, who then somehow winds up with Brad Beal on that roster, who's represented by your CEO's dad, Mark Bartelstein, and then refuses to waive his no trade clause so the Suns could get out from under that contract. Like, do you see how incestuous that is? Remember how much of a controversy it was that Brad Beal wouldn't waive his no trade clause?
Yes.
Oh my God. Like that is amazing. Fight on Natty's question. Can you blame the guy? Yeah, I can. Yeah. That is if this is all true, and these are allegations in a lawsuit, if this is all true, yeah, I absolutely can blame this guy and he should be terminated immediately. If it is found to be true that Josh Bartelstein had an affair, when Bartelstein asked plaintiff to reveal what Craig was saying, plaintiff explained that Craig had been telling others Josh Bartelstein is Sophie Cunningham. If that is in fact the case, yeah, he should be terminated. And again, I want to make it clear, allegations in a lawsuit, if that's true, he's got to go.
100%.
You can't be sleeping with your players. Like we are talking about the fact that, yeah, it's the WNBA, man. This is equality. This is empowering women until they allegedly have sex with the CEO of the team. You can't do that. Yeah, I can absolutely blame it.
Yeah.
I can't blame Calford for giving 20 Monty Show members.
Nice.
Speaking of Calford, maybe this is where we hop off and that came out wrong. Maybe this is where we get into Prize Picks. Prize Picks, the official daily fantasy partner of the Monty Show. Download the app, you guys. I had a huge weekend on Prize Picks. You know that Prize Picks had essentially inserted me and just done unspeakables. And it had taken an absolute ass whooping I had in my Prize Picks account. Well, the good news is we're on a heater. We've won 4 in a row. Thanks to PCA. Pete Crow Armstrong of Meyer and we, the beloved, the Chicago Cubs, who are in Miami playing baseball as we speak. Yet I have 2 old men on my TV talking about things I don't care about.
Yeah, because I'm busy looking at my depressing run on Prize Picks. Yeah, well, you suck at Prize Picks. That's not surprising.
I took home $275 over the weekend. Thank you, New York Knicks.
Doll hairs.
Love you. Let's get into some Major League Baseball Prize Picks. Download the app. Use the promo code Monty to open up a new Prize Picks account. You deposit $5. They'll give you 50 more instantly. Here's where I come down on Shohei Ohtani.
Yeah, Ohtani.
Huge matchup, Dodgers and D-backs tonight. Nothing good ever happens when the D-backs win a game. I just hope that people understand that. Hits, runs, and RBIs for Shohei Ohtani. I am going to go with 2.5 more for the great gambler tonight. Anybody notice Ippei has still not gone to jail?
Is that true?
Have you guys not heard this story about Ippei?
No, he's not in jail yet.
He's repeatedly asked for extensions, and the judge has said yes. And so Ippei is not in jail right now. And a lot of people are starting to wonder, where the hell is Ippei? Nobody has seen Ippei in a month.
He's overseas and stuff.
No, but well, seriously. Now, he can't leave the country. They have his passport, but stranger things have happened. But I think it's very interesting that Ippei, the interpreter who allegedly and has now been found guilty of stealing money from Shohei. Well, Shohei had nothing to do with that. Anyway, he's still not in jail. So hits, runs, and RBIs tonight. I like Shohei on the over. But Jose Ramirez at Minnesota. I like Jose Ramirez, the third baseman of the Cleveland Indians, the Guardians. 1.5 hits, runs, and RBIs. We're going to go more on that. And then, as usual, when you are on a heater, of course, you're going to go to pitcher strikeouts, right?
Duh.
Combos on pitcher strikeouts tonight. There's a couple that stand out. Christopher Sanchez and Kyle Freeland, 9.5 combined. Or Luis Castillo and Davis Martin, 9.5. Mariners and Sox, White Sox. I'm going to go Phillies and Rocks, and I'm going to go less than 9.5. So here's what I got for you. Shohei, more than 2.5 hits, runs, and RBIs. Jose Ramirez, more than 1.5 hits, runs, and RBIs. Christopher Sanchez, Kyle Freeland, less than 9.5 strikeouts. Pimp your boy, $20 to win, 57.
Yeah.
That's what I do. What do you got tonight? Anything? Nothing?
Nope.
You're scared.
Taking the night off, dude.
You're scared.
Taking the night off.
I want to thank me for having no days off.
Apparently, I do have a day off.
Okay. Backwoods Mike Smith, Ippei. Who the F is that guy?
Yeah, Ippei, the great pipeline to Vegas for Ohtani.
You turn on the
Who
Cubs.
the fuck are you?
Jake won't even put the Cubs on in the studio. He's worried the TV will melt with how hot Pete Crow Armstrong is.